Everything good? Take verses 1, 2, 3, and 5, and then go to our Heavenly Father in prayer. Father, will you do this in prayer? Number 7. Abide with me at soul's eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless soul abide with me. Swim to its close, and out once little day. Earth, joys grow dim, its glory pass away. Change and decay, in all around I see. Oh, thou who changest not, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. What but thy grace can for the tender time, who like thyself my guidance take and be. Through cloud and sunshine, abide with me. Oh, thou thy cross, keep o'er my closing eyes. Shine through the gloom and point me to the skies. As morning breaks and earthly shadows flee, in life and death, O Lord, abide with me. Pray, please. Almighty God, thank you for this day. Thank you, Lord, for giving us this midweek opportunity to come and have a Bible study. Pray, Heavenly Father, take us under here this evening for we both please in your sight and do much good for your kingdom. We pray, Heavenly Father, for those who may not be with us tonight due to illness, we ask you to be with them. If it be your will, allow them to return back to good health. We pray, Heavenly Father, for all the teachers that have prepared lessons and have good recollection for those lessons this evening, and that all those who are sitting in the seats, these students, that they'll clear their minds and just put their focus on you. Please watch over us this hour and keep us safe. Thank you for Jesus, hope of salvation. It's in Christ's name we pray.
Lay it down somewhere.
All right, we're starting in Isaiah chapter 13 and 14. This particular section from chapter 13 to 23, I think it is a section of Isaiah that brings judgment upon all the different nations around Judah. They have been dealing specifically in the first 12 chapters about Judah and Jerusalem and their idolatry and ungodliness and how God was going to deal with them. And now he's talking about the Gentile nations, or those nations that God was going to use as well to punish Israel or Judah. But as we spoke about, God uses those nations, but He does not allow them to continue in their sin without being judged or punished themselves. Before we do that, I've got a book that has been written here before we talk about just reading 13 and 14. This man talks about the different nations, or why God brings judgment upon these people, and what has happened, or why they are accountable to God. And it's not because of ignorance. It says here, moreover, the pagan nations had God's revelation of Himself in the universal flood, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Egypt, and the world. God's revelation through Joseph, and then through Moses, Aaron, the mighty wonders that declared His great name throughout all the earth. Moab had God's revelation through Balaam. The 7 heathen nations in Canaan were fully aware of God's manifestations in His being and power, that they should have joined Rahab in confessing the Lord your God. He is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. The Philistines possessed knowledge of God's miraculous work in Egypt, and were still talking about it centuries after its occurrence in 1 Samuel 6:6. The Queen of Sheba, 1 Kings 10:9, and all the earth knew about God as a result of the revelation of Himself through Solomon. Phoenicia had access to the knowledge of God through Elijah. Syria through the healing of Naaman. Elisha's knowledge of the king's words spoken in private, and his wonders in the Syrian army, to the degree that the bands of Syria came no more to the land of Israel. As Jehoshaphat and Judah faced the coalition of 3 great armies, God said, "Be not afraid nor dismayed by the reason of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours but God's." That's 2 Chronicles 20:15. The Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites experienced a defeat so great that they were as dead bodies fallen to the earth, and none escaped in 2 Chronicles 20. Assyria beheld God's great power in the death of 185,000 soldiers in one night, 2 Kings 19. And God's sustainment of Jonah in the belly of the fish, which was a sign unto the Ninevites in Luke 11:23. Then last it says, Babylon had God's wonder that was done in the land, 2 Chronicles 32, of Judah during the reign of Hezekiah, God's revelations of future events through Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar, and the handwriting on the wall, Daniel chapter 5, and Daniel's preservation and Daniel's likeness. Persia could boast of Esther and the providential marvel so great that many of the people of the land became Jews for fear the Jews fell upon them. The whole earth had Cyrus, named of God long before his birth, empowered by God to conquer nations with such ease that their efforts to resist him were like dust and stubble before his sword and bow, Isaiah 41. He consummated his victories with mighty Babylon submitting to his rule, and enabled the pagan nations of the earth to bear witness to his release of the Jewish captives, to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple, because God had thus commanded him, Ezra 1:1-3. I just wanted to read that particular thing because 13 through 20 talks about God's judgment against all these different people. And it wasn't the fact that they didn't have the same understanding as the Jews did. They didn't have the Old Testament law. They weren't experienced with God as the Jews were, as the children of God. But every nation, every people had the right, the ability to know of the one true God. All of them, all the nations that are named there, and all the events that happened throughout the Bible were for their benefit as well, and it was talked about throughout all the world. So when God started making these judgments against these people, it was justified, and they were guilty of just disregarding the evidence in front of them. And so God says, this is what's going to happen to you as well. I just wanted to make that, read that, because it kind of stood out to me in the sense of they didn't have any excuse. They knew all these things that we know as well, and as our world knows today, and yet so many people disregard it and just go on their way and act as if nothing is going to happen, and that it's just a story. It's not really something that a lesson to be learned from it. Any comments about that before we get into Isaiah chapter number 13? Isaiah chapter number 13. Curtis, can we start for us?
Sure. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah son of Amoz did see, lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates and doors. I have commanded my sanctified ones, I have also called my mighty ones for my anger. Even them that rejoice in my highness, the noise of multitudes in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts musters the host of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Even the Lord did the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. How ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand, it shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all the hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. And they shall be afraid, pains and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travails. They shall be amazed one at another, their faces shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven, the constellations thereof, shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened, and is going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogance of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible.
And you gonna read?
Will make a man more precious than gold. Even a man then, the golden wedge of all three. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the brooks shall remove out of their place. In the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. And it shall be as the chase that no man taketh up, they shall every man turn to his own people, and fear everyone into his own land. Everyone that is found shall be first fruit, and everyone that is joined unto him shall bow by the sword.
Motion. That's what you stop. Go ahead. Go. I didn't try to cut you off, Lois. You want to read?
Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Behold, I will stir the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as of gold they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the unhinged pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their abode there. But the wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of awful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. The wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces, and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged.
All right, very good. Appreciate that. Let's just start right there, and if we go through, we'll get on to 14 here in just a minute. It says, first question there that we've got down is, what is meant by the burden? It says the burden of Babylon.
I accidentally picked up the NIV, and it says oracle.
Oracle, all right. It's also used, oracle. So when we think of a burden, you've got a burden of something hard to bear, something that requires pain and anguish to make it through. And so God is looking at Babylon and saying, this is what you're going to have to bear up under. What do we know about Babylon? Who is the most famous king of Babylon? Nebuchadnezzar, right? He had the dream. It had the tower with him as the head of gold, the breast of silver, and the stomach, the thighs of brass, and then the legs of iron, the feet of iron and clay. Babylon was the most glorious of the kingdoms and the first as far as that goes, as far as world kingdoms were concerned. God used them to bring punishment upon Judah and upon Israel, but now God is saying that He's going to enact punishment upon them as well. All right, verses 2 through 5 are looking at something God is declaring to be organized. Can you tell what that is? Two says, lift up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice of them that shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. If you hold up a banner, what is that sign? Huh? All right, yeah, the ensign or what they hold up as far as the legions that are going into war. Each particular platoon or military group had their own sign, each one as far as organizing them. So this is talking about the organization of the enemies against Babylon. And one thing that stood out in that particular thing in verse number 3, it says, it talks about my sanctified. God speaking of this organization of military groups that are going to be going against Babylon. He calls them sanctified. What does that word sanctified usually mean when we read it in the Bible? All right, set apart. We think of sanctified, we think of the church being sanctified or set apart from the world. This is not talking about a group that is set apart from the world in the sense that the church is, but sanctified, this is a sanctified group or a specific group that God has set apart to do His bidding. What do we know about this group? Is it a righteous group? A holy group? one that is to be admired or looked up to. Alright, but it says that God has set them apart to do a specific thing for Him, and that is to take down Babylon, basically, is to eliminate the Babylonian Empire, who was at the height of its glory at this particular time.
Sanctified don't always mean holy.
No, it just means to be separate, to be set apart. God set apart the church to be holy, and so it means that to us in that respect. When it's talking about the church as being sanctified, it's set apart from the world. It lives a different style of life, a different moral code, and so that's how we get the idea from that. But it just means that God set it apart to do His bidding, and these people were not good people, but they were doing what God wanted them to do. Any comments? Number 4, what does the day of the Lord describe in verse number 6? We see the day of the Lord quite often used in the Bible. Depending on the context, you can determine what it's talking about there. Verse, How ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand, it shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. The day of vengeance, specifically, it's the day of the Lord, or the time that the Lord brings vengeance upon Babylon. This is all it's talking about. It's not talking about the day of the Lord as we would see that. If we were to say the day of the Lord today, what would we think about? The return of Christ, the judgment of Christ, the enactment of judgment by God at that particular time. So it's the same thing, but it's about a specific time frame. We're talking about a specific group of people here, the Babylonians. 5. What does the Bible say would be the result of the day of the Lord? Verses 7 through 10. There's a lot of different descriptions of how what would be happening when this judgment came upon the Babylonians. Can you see some or pull some out? Faint, all right. Weakness. Okay.
Pain.
Jump the heart sounds like that. Fear.
Okay. Fear. Sorrows. Pain as a woman in travail.
Amazement. Stupid gaze.
All right, so what we see here is that there's not any really good signs of happy days or here again or anything along those lines. When God decides that He's going to destroy Babylon, He's going to make it so that there's not any sense of relief at all for anybody that is involved or has a part with Babylon. What is Babylon? Where is Babylon used in the New Testament? Revelation. All right, it's used consistently in Revelation. If we look at what God is saying here about Babylon and what He's going to do to Babylon there, if you turn over and you look at Revelation, the accounts where He talks about Babylon there, it is using the same idea behind what's happening here and the destruction and the horror and all the bad that's going on there. And the same thing is being said about those who would withstand God in the New Testament, as far as Revelation and what's going to happen to those who are under the new covenant when the day of the Lord comes for us as well. So these ideas are not something that is just exclusively for the empire of Babylon back in the old world, but it has to do with people today who are of the same nature as the people of Babylon were back then. Comments? All right, number 6. What things would be punished? Verse 11. Specifically, there are 2, but I think there's 4 of them there. Things that would be punished. World. I was looking at the nature of the world. Evil. All right, evil. Iniquity. Arrogancy. Haughtiness. What's the difference between evil and haughtiness? What's the difference between the wickedness and and iniquity and haughtiness, what's the difference in those as far as sin?
Not much, you're gonna get destroyed out there.
All right, well, as far as the results, there's not any difference whatsoever. But what I was looking at is you think about wickedness and iniquity, you look at the actions that people take, the punishment that they receive because of the actions that they have, where you look at haughtiness and pride and that sort of thing, it's what produces it in man. And so the haughty heart is destroyed as well as the actions that are taken. What did Jesus say about when they, as far as wickedness, that it comes out of the heart? It's the source of it. And that's kind of what it's saying. Everything's going to be destroyed that is out of the source of the heart. 7. What is meant by the term, a man more precious than gold? All right, rare. Okay, very good. When the judgment of God comes upon Babylon and they are being overrun and taken, there is going to be a need for people to try to defend Babylon. And they're going to be so destroyed that there's not going to be the fighting, the ability within the nation of Babylon to pull together the men that would be needed to defeat this. And so the term, a man more precious than gold, is one that says that, God is going to eliminate or annihilate the army of Nebuchadnezzar, not Nebuchadnezzar, but Babylon in general. Number 8, who is named as the instrument of God's judgment? Verse number 17. Is there a name in verse 17? I got the right verse. Medes, all right? All right, so what do we know about the crown or the idol that Nebuchadnezzar saw? As far as the world, the world, as far as the empires, the head of gold was what? All right. So what was the second? Gold, silver. All right. Who was silver? All right, the Medes. All right. So we see here that they knew exactly who was going to cause them the problem, and it's pointed out by God that this is going to be the country today, or the nation, the empire that would defeat Babylon. Can you tell me how that was done? When it was done? I don't want a date, a year.
It was when they end up the Euphrates River.
Okay.
And he walked in, he went through the middle of the city, Babylon.
Okay.
And they had, I guess they had those, that was where they drained it away, brought water around, and they walked all through. Because, they didn't drop bridge, so it's like,
Dry land, right up. All right, we know where that was found. Well, it's Bible trivia. Where did it happen?
Isaiah 44.
No. Yeah. Where do we know what he just related to us? What book was that in? Remember the account, not where it's at. You know it. Daniel. Yeah. With it spoken of his needs, the handwriting on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Daniel chapter 5. You can check me on that. Yeah.
He was also a leader too.
Yeah, he went through several empires. He was a very, I think I read somewhere that thought he lived to be about 90 years old. Dang. No. Next, let's let's see. Number 9. How does the Bible describe the complete nature of what was to happen in Babylon? Verses 18 and 19. How does God let those people know through this prophecy or promise that this was going to be a total annihilation or a complete defeat of Babylon? What does 18 tell us? Alright, there was not. This was not going to be a military conflict with the civilians being spared. They were going to take out everybody that was in the way with no mercy whatsoever. And then in verse 19, there's an illustration given that shows the total annihilation. And what was that? Sodom and Gomorrah. So God, when He says He's going to do something completely, He uses that as an illustration to let people know that there's not going to be anything spared from it. Number 10, what was to become of Babylon, verses 20 through 22. All right. Okay. It's no longer inhabited. There's not the city of Babylon. There's not a city that is in that location. I've heard say that it's a retreat for animals now. It's like a place that they don't allow building in. But I was also reading out of Barnes that there's a comment in the scriptures here that says that the Arabian would not make his tent there, would not place his tent there. And there was a man who was doing some surveying down there, doing something within that area, and the Arabians would not even spend the night. That were traveling with him would not even spend the night there. They would go in and help him out, but they would leave before nightfall. This was back, not too long ago. God said that there would not be any reestablishment of Babylon, that it would be desolate, and that's exactly what happened. There is no place like Babylon. And what is unique about that, I think you probably heard said before, that the walls of Babylon were so wide that they could drive chariots, like 4 chariots, down. It's like a 4-lane highway around the walls of Babylon. So now it's nothing.
That city lasted a long time. So that Alexander the Great, how long did it last after that?
See, it was, I don't know as far as the city itself how long it lasted, but I imagine it was destroyed pretty rapidly when the Medes and the Persians came in. God said it was going to be gone.
You know, when the Medes, read here, the Medes were mentioned in Isaiah 13, they weren't even a separate independent nation.
Medes and Persians.
Yeah, so God prophesied something that people didn't even fully understand how it was possible who are the Medes that in terms of the nation, they're not strong on their own. Yeah.
Is the Syrian part of the Medes and Persians?
The Assyrians were Nineveh and the area there, and that was before Babylon. And Babylon came along and rose power and defeated the Assyrians, and then the Medes destroyed the Babylonians. Any questions about chapter number 13? Read chapter number 14. It's a continuation of chapter number 13 with a little bit added at the end. But we'll just read it and see how it fits with chapter 13. Jabo, how you feeling about reading? I don't think there are any big words in there.
For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. The strangers shall be dwelling with them, and they shall stay to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for the servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives they are, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass one day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, from thy fear, and from thy hard bondage, wherein thou wast made to serve. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased, if only to be ceased? The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the ruler. He who smote the people in the wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, and persecuted and unhindered. The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet, they break forth into singing.
ash trees rejoice with thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Ephraim beneath is moved toward thee to meet thee at thy coming, and stir up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth it hath raised up their thrones, all the kings of the nations. And they shall seek and say unto thee, Art thou also come weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of the bulls and the worm is spread underneath thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down into the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said unto thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of congregation in the sight of the Lord. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the side of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble and to shake thy kingdoms? That made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, every one of his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as thy raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stone of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land, and slain thy people, and the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saying the Lord of hosts, cut off from Babylon the name of her son and nephew, saith the Lord. I will also make their possession for the bitter and pools of water, and I will sleep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, Surely as I thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I purposed, so it shall stand. But I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread them underfoot, and shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders.
This is the purpose that is purposed on the whole earth. And this is the hand that stretched out upon all the nations. For the Lord of hosts hath purpose, and who shall disannul it? And the hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. Rejoice not thou, O Palestine, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and the fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. The firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy ruin. How, O gate, proud city, thou, O Palestinian, mark his off, for there shall come to the north smoke, and none shall be alone in its appointed times. What shall one then answer the messengers of the nation, that the Lord hath found Zion, and the poor of the people shall trust in him?
Very good. Thank you very much. All right, question number 11. There's a contrast that's made in 14, 1 and 2, looking back at chapter 13. Can you see what that is? Who's spoken of in verse number 1? The Lord will have mercy on. Alright, and will yet choose Israel. Alright, 1 and 2 is talking about Judah and using the term Israel together. God, looking back at 13, says Babylon's going to be destroyed. Everybody's going to be killed, carried off. It's going to become a desolate place. Now, you go back and you look at chapters 1 through 12, and God had said that he was going to do all these things to the children of Israel, to Judah and to Jerusalem, but then it's saying, all right, here's what's going to happen to Babylon, but then let's step back. God's going to punish Israel. He's going to punish Judah because of their wickedness, but because of his covenant with Abraham and with his covenant with Isaac and Jacob and David and all these things, he's going to have mercy on them and spare them, and there's going to be a remnant. So he says there's a contrast. And we can look at that contrast as well in our society. God is going to punish to the ultimate end those who don't obey the gospel. We may be punished or suffer things of consequence because of the things that we do in our lives, but if we will straighten our lives out and live according to God's law and do the things that He says, in His mercy, He will spare us. There'll be a remnant that will be spared that's faithful. And so that truth that we look at back there is how God's dealing with everybody, depending on their relationship to Him. It still applies to us today. He's pointing that out, that there is a difference between what's happening in Babylon and what's happening with Judah and Jerusalem, even though He is showing forth His anger and His justice to both groups of people. Question number 12. What would be the reaction of Israel to Babylon's predicament? Verses 3 through 8. Verse 3 says that there would be rest. I think that would be relief. Verse 4 says, thou shalt take up this proverb. They'll be talking about how God had taken care of them. Verse 4, verse 5, the Lord has broken the staff. There would be freedom from the bondage that was there in Babylon. Verse 6, He's going to smite the enemies of the nations. And then verse 7, it talks about there being breaking forth in verse 8. Talks about the trees. I want to just make a little note there on verse 8. That says, yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon are saying, since thou art laid down, no feller has come up against us. What is that talking about? What is it? The trees are singing. Alright, so it's a song. What it is just figurative language, describing the singing, the rejoicing, the happiness because of what has been done to Babylon, who is the enemy of all nations. And so when Babylon falls, everybody is in a period of relief and thanksgiving and happy and singing and all of that. But we want, when you look at that, cedar trees and fir trees and that sort of thing, you see the figurative language that God is using through Isaiah here to describe. It's all it is. It's not anything that we need to understand as far as the trees and all that sort of thing. It's just a matter of using figurative language to describe the rejoicing. Yeah, there's not a feller there, so, there's not an enemy. Babylon represented the feller. The feller has been defeated by God, and so there is rejoicing among them. The tree wants to live just like everybody else. Okay, so the feller is gone and everybody's happy. Alright? And you could go back, if you want to look at the figurative language, it's used not only in this chapter, I meant to make one of it, verse 10 and chapter 13 says, for the stars of heaven, the constellations thereof shall not give their light, the sun shall be darkened, it is going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. God there is talking about the destruction of Babylon, but He's using these figures to say that there's not going to be any awareness. Our people are going to be in a state of despair and that sort of thing. And so the lack of stars and moon and that sort of thing is not a literal thing, but it's a figurative illustration to show how dark the time would be that the people would have to deal with in battle. Any questions or comments about that? Number next, 13. What is the implication in verses 9 through 11? 9 says, hail from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth it hath raised up from the thrones, all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? The pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy bowels, the worm is spread under thee, and worms cover thee. This is speaking about Babylon now. What is it talking about? Babylon was up here. Everybody else is in the past, is in the grave. Everybody else is down here. You're going to be just like us. Hell's going to say you're just like one of us, and you're going to meet the same fate as us. Is the point that God is making towards no matter where you are. You might take that even to some measure about the United States of America. If we're not too careful about how we praise things and how we serve God and what we make out of our lives, we could be the next one that falls just like Babylon did. There's nothing special about the United States of America if it's an ungodly nation and is doing ungodly things. No different than Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Rome, just like all of them. Number 14. Who is Lucifer? All right. Who is Lucifer? Verse number 14. Huh? No, I want to get y'all take on this. I know what most people think when you say Lucifer. Let's look at what it says there in verse number 14. And I will ascend, 13 or 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Alright, what is the context of the chapter? What is it talking about? 13 and up to here 14. Babylon. Alright, so we haven't stepped away from Babylon. We're still dealing with Babylon. Alright, so Lucifer, what are the characteristics of Lucifer? Verse number 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount, the congregation, the sides of the north, and I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will make thee like the Most High God. Alright, so that's what everybody thinks, that we're talking about the devil now, but remember, we're talking about Babylon. We're talking now about the king of Babylon. You know, he's the most powerful individual in the world, and he's taken it upon himself to think. What did Nebuchadnezzar say? Daniel chapter 2, 3. When he had the dream, Daniel says, you know, you're going to eat the grass. And the day that he said, you know, look at this great Babylon which I've made. You know, that was the attitude that they had. You look at Babylon, it was one of the 7 wonders of the world in that time frame. And he made it. And the sons and grandsons that followed him, that was the attitude that they took. And so this is talking about the heart of the king of Babylon, whether it be Nebuchadnezzar or Belshazzar or whoever it was at a particular time. But it says that he's going to be, that was his attitude of pride, and that was what he was aspiring to be, not in the sense that he was going to have a throne in heaven, but he was going to put himself in a position in his heart, and how everybody looked at him, as something as God himself, or above God himself. And that was what this was condemning right here. But if you look at it, verse number 16 says, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Talking about the king of Babylon and all his power and might. The world was in fear of him and his army, no matter where he went. But now God's saying, look, here's the way it was, and this is how you were, and this is what's going to become of you. And it says there, that made the world as a wilderness, destroyed the cities thereof, and opened not the house of his own prisoners. All the kings of the nations, even all of them that lie in glory, every one in their own house. If you look at all these nations and all the past history of their leaders, the kings or presidents or whatever, they're in these grand tombs. They're entombed in glory, and everybody admires them and looks at that. But then what does it say about him? Verse 19, but thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain thrust through with the sword, that go down in the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed of thy land and slain thy people, and the seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. God says, you got this heart of pride and ego like this, and this is what's going to be your end. You're not even going to be honored at the end of time. Where's Nebuchadnezzar buried? Where is Belshazzar? Where are all of those men buried? None of them. There's no glory or honor that is in all of Babylon as far as the leadership there. All we know about them to a great degree as far as.
And why the religious world has given the devil the name of Lucifer does not have any harm whatsoever involved.
I think it was the passage in Scripture, Luke 18:10, I think it was. What's that? Is that the one that you were talking about? where Lucifer, or Satan is cast out.
Lucifer is a morning star that was observed, bright morning star that was observed in that area. Yeah, it's basically depicting, seeing that Nebuchadnezzar, who was seen by the world as being a light that everybody looked to, was fallen down. Yeah, being cast down. So it's not even a title that would go for any form of spiritual.
So it was used as the fallen angel, but it was really not.
Well, we don't know that he wasn't a fallen angel, but this is not talking about the devil. It's talking about
Lucifer was not a title given to the devil in Scripture. Man, for whatever reasons unknown, said this is the devil. It's not.
It's going to sign that guy.
Which doesn't make sense. That's the context of Scripture.
We can twist things and make them sound good. A lot of different ways. All right. It's good to see you again. Appreciate you being here again. We had a good Bible study and things were worthwhile. We learned a little bit and were encouraged by being here. There are announcements that need to be made before we extend the Lord's invitation and dismiss. Okay. Jane Johnson, Nana's sister, is in NHC in Gallatin. She's been in the hospital for a few days. She's been having some problems walking. Pains in her hip, knee, and foot. We would pray for her. She's making some progress. Others that we need to make mention of tonight. Bobby's having some tests run on Friday. Continue to pray for him. Things might go well with the test and might be able to get out and be able to do what he enjoys doing. It's good to see Linda out. Things went well with her and her procedures. Others that we want to make mention of? 368 will be our hymn of invitation here in just a second. We will be having Bible study at 9:30 on Sunday morning, Lord willing, and worship at 10:30 as the regular order of worship. We'll be here for that. I want to read Psalm 61. Speak about it for just a second. As our invitation, Psalm 61 says, "Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For thou hast been a shelter for me and a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in thy covert, in the covert of thy wings. For thou, O God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. Thou wilt prolong the king's life, and his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. O prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows." David, as the king, had great privilege. All the things that were going on around him and what he could obtain in all his life. But the greatest source of strength for David was not in the power that he had accumulated in the physical and political worlds that he had. He recognized that everything that encouraged him in a daily life, that got him through each day, was the fact that he had that one-on-one relationship with God, that he could call unto God, and God would answer his prayer. God would deliver him. God would take him wherever he needed to go. It says there in verse number 6, thou wilt prolong the king's life. David did not have that special privilege in the sense that he was the king of Israel, although God handpicked him and had Samuel to anoint him. But that was not, his political power was not the source of his strength or his peace of mind or anything. It's the fact that he had that relationship with God. Jesus, or Paul in Acts chapter 17, when he was there with the Athenians, talked about, I think that was the chapter that wasn't it. We are all called kings as well. And the Bible talks about we are kings in the sense of spiritual kings with a little k. We have that relationship as Christians with God, to appeal to God, to get the answers in our prayers that we need for the things that we need in strengthening and guidance and forgiveness and all of those aspects as well. This psalm would apply very clearly and easily with all of us today who are faithful Christians. We can appeal to God, we can cry out to God, and He will hear our cry, and sometimes we do need to do that. But that's only something that is available for those who are in the right relationship with God, those who are Christians in this day and age, children of Israel, faithful children of Israel back in David's day. He wasn't the only one that had that privilege and that right. All the Jews had it if they were faithful to the laws that they were under in that dispensation. So the question tonight is, do you have it? As a child of God, do you have that privilege to cry out to God when you're in need, knowing that He will answer you, knowing that He will help you, knowing that He will protect you and provide you a way out of it, and eventually a way home? If you're not a child of God, if you haven't obeyed what Jesus said to do and being baptized for the forgiveness of your sins, after acknowledging Him as the Son of God and repenting of your sins, then you don't have that privilege. You don't have that opportunity. You don't have the ability to have that comfort that David had. But it is only allowed for those who are faithful children of God. You can restore that relationship to God and have that ability to do it anytime and every time that you run into a situation that you need help. But you must do it by being obedient to Jesus Christ and the laws that have been laid down for us today in order to have that relationship. You need to straighten out your relationship so that you can appeal to God. Let us help you to pray to God for your forgiveness or baptizing you into Christ. If you need to come, please come now while together we stand while we sing.
I hear the Savior say, my strength indeed is small, and the peace is much and great, find in me thine all in all. Jesus made it all to Him I owe. Sin and let the Prince of Sin, He washed it white as snow. And when before the throne I stand in Him complete, I'll lay my trophies down, all down at Jesus' feet. Jesus made it all to Him I owe. Sin and let the Prince of Sin, He washed it white as snow.
Rest quick goes up 40 and chant, please.
Lord, that all that things is time to us to together and learn more about you. What would you do with us outside of this church to always do your will, to be light in the world? Lord, please be with all the sick that are mentioned. Please be with all the families that have lost loved ones and allow some comfort to begin with them. Lord, please watch over us to keep us safe from next time we meet.
Line is this,
You got to take me down there.
Whatever.